and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by Laura and Lillian of Fur. You guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, we're excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us on.
Of course. So to kick off the episode, I'd like to start out from each of you. Just this question: where did you grow up, and what would you say your childhood was like?
We both grew up in New York City. We're actually best friends from 7th grade.
Wow.
And now we base our business in New York. So we haven't really made it very far. But if Lillian, you want to add to that?
I would say very exactly. We've known each other since we were 12. Nothing wild about our backgrounds or growing up, just spent a lot of time focused on our activities together. We were gymnasts together.
Yeah, we were captains of the high school gymnastics team together. So we always did things together.
Awesome.
Yes, we've always worked on projects essentially together. And we're probably, I would say we were both pretty academically driven.
Yeah. What would you say some of those interests? I know you mentioned gymnast. Was that the core interest together? What was that like growing up? Like, what did you guys enjoy doing? Academics as well, you mentioned.
I love sports.
Yeah.
I still love sports. Loved sports. Gymnastics was not my core interest. I was a really big tennis player when I was young. Yeah, so it's competition of.
Yeah, but I think there were a lot of early things with us, right? So, I mean, gymnastics was, I think, more of my core, although we were both athletic and continued to be super athletic. But I'd say that was an activity we did together. It was an activity we enjoyed. And I do think it contributed to the founding of Fur, like gymnastics in particular. I think wearing leotards from an early age actually definitely impacted our business later.
I mean, core memory, right? So we would go to these competitions, like super small high school competitions with like other schools coming in, and you wear a leotard. And the team comprised of, anywhere from like someone in like 8th grade to like 12th grade. And so like the older girls would be like, oh, once you have like underarm hair or your bikini line, like you got to shave that before competition. And they'd like whip out a razor, and you'd be doing this in a corner of a locker room with like no water, no shaving cream, like just straight up dry just to deal with it. And that was like an education moment, but maybe not the right education moment now that I look back on it.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm curious then, kind of getting into closer to college years, did you guys, what was that like friendship-wise? Did you go to the same school together at all, or was there a little separation break at that time, or?
No, we went to all the same schools together. So we went to 7th to 12th grade together. We went to undergrad together, and then we got our MBAs together, and none of that was planned.
Oh my gosh.
And then we started this business. And then, of course, I had this idea for a beauty business, and Lillian was working at L'Oreal. And so none of that was planned.
Oh my word.
But here we are.
Wow. So where did you guys go to study then? And what did you study?
We studied at Harvard undergrad, and we got our MBAs at Columbia.
Incredible. So I know a beauty background post-graduation, but what were some of those aspirations, would you say? Going to school, graduating, what did the outlook look like before Fur?
I don't think either of us. Well, I was more likely to be planned to go into beauty. My first job ever was at Bobbi Brown as an intern. So I always loved beauty, but definitely, I don't think neither of us thought we would end up with a career in beauty. And in fact, Fur is Laura's only experience in beauty, which is why I asked to the Fur story.
Yeah.
So when she's like, I have a beauty idea. Okay, I probably need to bring in someone with beauty experience. I happen to, at that point, have been in beauty.
Yeah.
But it was not like the end goal for me either. I started in finance, which still actually serves us. And Laura also started in finance, which also serves us.
Yeah.
There, and then actually pivoted my way into consumer marketing and subscription work before I ended up back in beauty after my MBA. And then into.
Laura, what did that look like for you as well? I'm curious, that time.
Sort of a very corporate background as well. And I think that makes us unusual beauty founders. So I started my career also in finance, and then pivoted to consulting, and then got my MBA. But during my MBA, and so Lily and I, again, we studied together. She was doing, the marketing club. And I was interested in entrepreneurship, and I actually wanted to start a business out of my MBA, but didn't really have the right idea. Like, it wasn't really gelling. And so I said, you know what, I'll go back into consulting and sort of, gather my thoughts. And I'm really glad I did that. And so I did that another I guess 3 years after business school. And then I had this idea for fur. And so I called Lily and I said, well, and Lillian hated the idea. So that was sort of the best part of the story in a way, is that I called up Lillian. Well, she was at my holiday party in 2014. And I had this blue Boston bottle of what would become fur oil.
Wow.
And I said, this is, I put it in her bag. I gave her a really strong drink. And I said, I hope you have a great year. And also, try this product. Like it's going to be great. And we're going to start this company together.
Wow.
And so I convinced her to leave her big job and join me in this adventure.
That's amazing. So after this holiday party, I'm curious, Lillian, what was your thoughts at that time as well? And like receiving the product, like what was on your mind?
It was actually, so she started talking to me about the idea before she even had that sample. And when she started talking, just like the idea was when I was like, that's a horrible idea. You want people to take an extra step in their beauty care routine to deal with their pubic hair and body hair. Like people have no more money to spend, no more space in their bathroom counter. Stores are not going to give you more space. You're going to have to educate people of like why they even need to think about their body hair. Like it's not a thing. I think I was coming from a pretty jaded marketing perspective in beauty. I was at the largest beauty company in the world in their largest brand, Maybelline, in mascara, where there are only so many ways you can convince a consumer that their eyelashes need to be black and long.
Yeah.
So I was just like, it's so hard to differentiate. Like you can't really do it. But at the end of the day, I'm also like a product person. So she gave me that formula and gave it my bag. And I was like, all right, I tried. It tried the oil, which at that point didn't have a name. Like there was nothing. It was just like an oil. It said cold pressed oil. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. It feels amazing on the pubic area. It does what it says. Like I feel like this is just a compelling product. Okay. And then I started, talking about the idea with like people around me, and they're like, they either hated it or loved it. And then that like sort of gets into the whole like marketing perspective. But to me as a marketer, like I was interested in those reactions because it's so much more interesting and you have a lot more to stand on if you elicit a strong reaction as a brand versus just something that means nothing. First, like at that point, I'm like, okay, this concept stands for something. That's really interesting. It's a lot easier to change someone's negative opinion versus a non-opinion where they just forget about you in 1 second. So that's, I don't know. So apparently I went from being a naysayer to a co-founder.
Well, a skeptic. And I think that dynamic has served us to this day because Lily and I do have really different perspectives. And often when we achieve consensus, that's when we know it's sort of a good idea and the right execution. And I think that's actually part of the strength of our partnership is we can completely disagree with one another and it's not personal. And, I think it makes the company better.
Yeah. At this time, what did your professional and like personal lives look like? Did you step away fully from corporate, like to go all in at the beginning, or was there a balance for a number of time?
Not that long. I mean, that's one of the things. It's like if you're going to do something, I think you really do have to do it and give yourself really no sort of like security blankets. What we did is, so I 3 months later left my job, and what we did though, we're all in, so we worked on it full time. What we did was like we put a marker in the calendar 12 months out. And we're like, we're not just going to like blindly keep doing this. Like in 12 months, we are going to sit down and have an honest conversation of if there are any legs or any glimmers to this venture, because we're not just going to sit here and like not build our careers and like for years and like that's a big mistake. We have to in a year have a sit down and have this conversation. So that's what we did. We like went all in for a year.
Wow. At that time, I'm curious, Laura, were you what did that R&D process look like, and then taking that into maybe mass manufacturing? Was that you still making that formulation like in-house?
Oh, I didn't know. I never made it myself.
You never did.
And I'd also say, to Lillian's point, like I think people who can start a business as a side hustle, I think that's great and admirable. I don't think I ever had the kind of job with the kind of hours where that would have been possible, but I do think that's a great idea. Whenever people say that, I'm like, wow, I really admire that. And I don't know how you do that. But so I did, I left my job. It's sort of when I was working on this other venture that again, wasn't really gelling because I tried another idea. And in the meantime, so I had this idea for fur with my sister. I was talking about fur oil. And I started, but I used my skills from consulting. I said, well, how am I going to make a beauty product? And so I started Googling cosmetic chemists and I made a list of about 50 and I just started calling them. So I also learned a lot about cold calling in my previous career in consulting. Yeah. And so I just started calling them. And so I'd call them all up and I'd say, well, I'd tell them my idea. And a lot of them hung up on me. But first of all, some of them called me right back and said, you know what? I thought that was really shocking. Like it was so shocking talking about pubic hair that I hung up the phone. But I thought about it for 5-10 minutes, sometimes an hour. And this isn't that crazy at all. And I'm calling you back. So some people called me back. More often than not, they didn't. But I would call them back and I'd say, man, that connection must have been really bad. As I was saying, I want to create a pubic hair oil and, do you have the capabilities? Can you help me? And so eventually, actually what I didn't land on the manufacturer you worked with. I landed on someone, just a kind soul in California. And I said, I have this dream. Will you help me? And they said, this project is really too small for me. It's really not what I do, but you should call X. And that is actually the manufacturer he works with to this day. And so it was really, again, always picking the phone back up. If someone hangs up on you, call them back. And it's, if you can't help me, that's great, but who can, right? Yeah. And so that connected us with sort of our original contract manufacturer and formulator. And so then we were sort of off to the races. But then it took, how long was formulation was, it took us about 2 years to get that original formula all in. Yeah. So.
Did you guys do a funding round for like any of that formulation or production?
We are still bootstrapped.
All bootstrapped. Wow.
Oh, yes.
Wow. Incredible.
Using that finance background.
Yeah.
Which goes back to the whole, like, she and I have very open discussions and will disagree sometimes because it is the two of us making important decisions. We don't have a board. And, it's our investment at stake. So you can't be half-assed in your decisions.
For sure. Eventually, once that maybe formulation got nailed down by the chemist and manufacturer, what did that rollout look like for a launch for you guys? Did you hold an inventory and then ship out from maybe a 3PL or from your apartment?
No.
I'm curious.
No, yeah, we made 1,000 units of fur oil. Yeah, and we stored them in my apartment. Yeah, because I had a study in that apartment, and we shipped out of Lillian's house, the two of us, because she lived across the street from the post office.
We became really good friends with the post office people.
Yeah.
They'd be like, why do you have giant bags of these boxes all the time?
Yeah.
And that was the cheapest we could do. And then when Lillian was expecting her first child, she again, honest conversation. She said, I just can't do this anymore. I can't pack boxes. And so that's when we got a 3PL. And so we took the inventory to the 3PL in Lillian's car. It fit in the trunk at that point. Mm-hmm. I think we had 3 products by the time we did that.
It was great. We ended up at a professional 3PL and you could see the truck trailers like plugged into the bays. Truck trailer, and then like my little car. Trying to get to the loading dock. It's like not even the right height. And like the guys are helping us unload it. They unloaded like 3 boxes and it was done. Like, wow, we feel so professional. Like a 3PL, one location.
Oh my gosh.
Scanned in the inventory. They know exactly how many units. Like before, we'd just be like estimating out.
Yeah.
So we moved to a 3PL. And again, that was another sort of family-owned business.
Okay.
And that owned by a woman. And she believed in us too. So I think definitely early on, we had a few really key vendors that were really partners to us and saw the vision and saw our drive and that we really wanted to do this and we're going to do this. And I think those are really key actually to the early years.
Oh, you know who was another early one? We invested in only 2 things when we launched. 1, buying the product, right? Like all 1,000 units. And 2, the other person who believed in us was our PR agent.
Okay.
She has a ton of beauty experience. And we're like, if we're going to make this a beauty category, how do you validate something, especially back in 2016? We're like,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to have to invest in those relationships with the editors who are going to talk about this in an elevated, elegant manner. And so those were the two things we spent on in 2016.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. In that time period, especially with your marketing background prior, what did that rollout look like? It's like convincing, swaying consumers, especially with the conversation of pubic hair. It sounds like PR was a huge effort as well.
Yeah. Well, the funniest thing is my big beauty marketing background did not do much to help me prepare for this super tiny indie beauty indie beauty launch.
Yeah.
But I think, unique positioning is something that I do always love and I've always like strive for.
Yeah.
And so we like try and put that front and center all the time. But in terms of mechanics and tools we were using, I mean, the tools we were using were like the tools that were self-service tools. Like I built our very first website. I ran our first meta campaigns, which was known as Facebook back then. Because again, the only thing we were spending money on was the PR side of things. But, in terms of marketing, so no, back then, like influencer marketing wasn't as big. No, I think it was primarily press. Paid did not work because it's too competitive.
Yeah.
And they only see like your brand for a second. And this is a brand. This is like, we're going to talk about pubic hair. You need to get into it.
Yeah.
And have a conversation about it. And like digital marketing at that point, that's just not what you're going to get.
Yep.
What we did find was the best advocates for our brand were professional estheticians who do waxing services. So speaking of other things we did, Laura, back to her cold calling roots, spent a lot of time in 2016 talking to small retailers and estheticians and explaining to them why fur made so much sense for them. And they totally got it right away. And they became the biggest word of mouth advocates for fur in the beginning. And they still continue to this day.
Yeah. I mean, was that a big part of getting in
our first 400 salons?
That's what I was just going to say. Did you guys physically get into those locations? And
oh yeah, I was kicked out of some of them.
Yeah.
Actually, I was kicked out of several stores for, man, you can't solicit on these premises.
But also it's a cool idea.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
You should be on Shark Tank, which then we were, and you can't solicit on these premises. So, but even when I went to I went to like destination weddings, I would take a box of fur and I'd go door to door in that city. And
oh my gosh.
It's
amazing. So you guys ordered this first round of 1,000. I'm curious, how long did that take to get through that? And then until your next run, and what did that next run look like as well?
I don't remember, to be honest, but the early runs were really small. And that was, again, a great thing about working with a manufacturer who really believed in us and what we were trying to do, because we had someone who was willing to really flex the MOQs or minimum order quantities to what we needed at that time, because they really wanted to see us succeed. And again, I think that's really unusual. And definitely, people talk about, of course, talent is the most important thing, and also your vendors, because when times get tougher, when you need, you need them to be your friends too. So I think that is a place where we've been really fortunate, is to have vendors who will really work with us as partners.
Yeah.
And that's what I would encourage anyone in consumer brand. It's actually all about minimum order quantities. And, when things go wrong, as they inevitably do when you make physical things that you're going to put out in the world, you really learn a lot about your partners and, are they going to help you solve the problem?
Yeah. Yeah.
Rolling back, I think it was about less than a year for the 1,000. And then in 2017, Emma Watson talked about fur oil. And at that point, we'd had like a few more thousand, and that was supposed to last us the next year, right? Like, our business had like tripled. So we went from like 1,000 to 3,000. And that ended up like getting sold out in 2 weeks. But to Laura's point, he was like, yeah, that's an amazing thing. I'm going to get you these things. Yes, you'll be sold out, but you'll only be sold out for like 3 weeks. We'll get you another like 5,000 like as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's so incredible. I'm curious, what did that relationship look like maybe with like someone like Emma? Was that just like organic?
That was not a relationship. It was,
Wow.
she discovered it, and we think, I mean, again, it was organic. So we actually came in, it was about March 2017, and she had talked about fur oil and Into the Gloss. And we didn't know about it. We knew that she frequented some of those small retailers that, we had won by hand. And, had some press and, but it was totally organic, and it was just a stroke of luck for us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know you mentioned, you kind of foreshadowed Shark Tank there. We're in the 2016, 2017, but Shark Tank 2019. What did that evolution look like, and the desire to get on the show as well? Did they pitch you guys? Did you apply? What did that relationship look like?
We applied the season before we went on, and we went through sort of they have like a few rounds, and we got to sort of the final selection round, and it didn't work out that season.
Mhm.
And then they called us back the following season and asked us to apply again. And so we did. Again, we're sort of, it seemed like a good calculated chance. And I think that's also something that really governs me and Lillian is, what seems like a calculated chance. And so we did it. And so that season they put us on.
Wow.
And I think it was, again, back to the decision making there. We want everyone to feel comfortable talking about their body hair. And 2019 was the perfect time to blow out the body hair category conversation.
Yeah.
I'd say if we'd done it any earlier, it wouldn't have been taken seriously on a platform like Shark Tank and ABC. And I don't even necessarily think the audience would have been ready for it. But to meet our goals, like, we're more than just a beauty company. We want to be the ones there that are supporting anyone who wants to talk about how they feel in their body hair routine, whether they're like dedicated laserers or shavers, or they've been growing it out since they were young and people used to make fun of them. It doesn't matter. We just want to make products and a brand that is here to support them. And everyone has body hair. So we're like, okay, 2019, this is great. We are bigger. We have a brand that stands for something. How can we reach more people? Shark Tank was a great opportunity to reach more people, to normalize that conversation, to be able to make the word pubic just part of the daily vernacular. I mean, up until, less now, but when we first launched, big decision makers, whether it was like the media, whether it was buyers in retail, investors, they would tell us the word pubic was a dirty word. And to us, we're like, no, that's actually just like the scientific word. Like, we're not here to make waves. We're here to just create a brand. They thought that the word pubic was dirty. And so by the time we got to 2019, we're like, this is a great opportunity to really normalize what we stand for and what we want to bring to the world. And so that's, I think, why Shark Tank was in 2019 was really the right time for this.
Yeah.
We always did wait, and we didn't compromise until Lillian's point. One retailer in particular, a nationwide retailer, said, we were bootstrapped, right? So we've always needed the money. And they said, we love you. We love your brand. It's really beautiful. If you take pubic off the front of the fur oil box, we will carry you in all of our retail locations. And we said no. Yeah. Because again, we are a brand on a mission. We are destigmatizing pubic hair. We are opening conversations about body hair. And, without pubic hair on the box, it's really, what do we stand for? And so we felt very strongly that we couldn't do that. And it was also a hard decision.
We felt very strongly, but we also strongly evaluated that. We were like, well, maybe, but of course, no.
Yeah. Love that. So that timing there, the Shark Tank was 2019. Did it air in 2019 too as well, or 2020? What did that look like?
2020.
Right before the pandemic.
Wow. What did you find that timing? Do you think that was like perfect timing for the viewership? I mean, and I'm sure they replayed that episode on air a few times, maybe.
They still replay it. And actually, we still see a small ripple in our sales when they replay it, which is really interesting. But again, it's all with our mission. I mean, we've also done billboards. We've done out of home. Again, that is really what gets us up in the morning and energizes us is reframing the conversation around body hair. And so the bigger the platform we have to do that, the better. Yeah.
As far as like the angle content wise, I'm curious, what approach do you find works best? Like education? What does that look like? Some of those routes?
Sorry, repeat that question.
Yeah. So as far as like content and marketing, like what kind of content and the angle do you find works best, especially for like
Got it.
I mean, I don't know if I would say a newer category, but a category like pubic hair.
Well, yeah, no, that's been the thing. Not only are we building a brand, we're building a category. So we have to, for every marketing effort we put out there, it's like at least 2 times the effort. It's not like, oh, we're a new shampoo. Everyone knows what a shampoo is. Here we are being like, okay, you have to talk about body hair, and this is what you need to think about when you consider body hair. And this is fur, and this is how we do it. So 1,000%, it's about education, but it's education and also conversation. So education in the way of, it's not just education coming from fur, right? It's not a one-way like lecture. It's working with people who are body hair advocates or body hair experts, which again is not saying we shame people who get rid of body hair. No. Estheticians and waxers are one of the biggest part of our education angle. As are people who are focused on body hair inclusivity, because they're talking about sort of what body hair means to their identity. As derms and gynecologists are also part of our education, and also just general beauty influencers who understand, the next generation, the new categories of where beauty is going. So they're also part of that education. And at the same time, conversation is a big part of our education angle, because some of our biggest fur fans are the ones that go onto the platforms and talk about fur and what it means to them. And we'll still get a lot of hate on social media. And we as a brand don't even have to say anything. The fans will come in and stand up for us and be like, why are you like feeling uncomfortable? What does this say about you if you're uncomfortable about this person who's exhibiting underarm hair? Like, Fur's putting it in a tasteful way. It's elegant. It's not in your face.
Yeah.
Like take a moment to reflect. And so we don't even have to get in on that. So I think that's a really big part of it. And the content angle is, again, the tack we take is not to be in your face.
Yeah.
It's just to be matter of frank and open and honest. So anything like any of our campaign work, it'll show a variety, and it'll show it in a way that is confident and elegant and not there to shock and awe.
Yeah.
Which was also a real decision we made back at the founding of the brand, because a lot of people did say, you should say, all sorts of, but you should say the bush is back. You should say that, and we said, but that's really against our message, because our message is whatever you want to do is great. And we're here to help you frame that narrative and create options to help you take care of your hair and skin. We didn't want anyone to feel bad about hair they may have removed. And so that was never where we wanted to come from. And so we've always been gender inclusive, and we've always been inclusive of all body hair expressions.
Getting into retail, I know you guys are in Ulta. What did that rollout look like, and what time period as well? Because I know you mentioned a retailer before. They might have tried to pivot some of your messaging, but what did this decision mean for you guys, that next big retailer, I would say?
We've always found with retail that it always starts small. So we started in a test with them, the wellness test. We were one of the flagship brands. And then we rolled out. And now we are in the full. So we've been with Ulta, 5 years now, but it's really been building our brand there as well. And so I think that's also, maybe something people I don't know. That's just been our experience. So a lot of it is about building at these retailers as well, and sort of building a channel and building a partnership.
For sure.
And I would just say, I was so pleasantly surprised working with Ulta back, 2018, 2019, just in discussions, how much ownership and belief they had in a small brand like ours, and how much ownership the merchants had to champion us in such a large organization and be like, we will find a place for this. We will do this as an experiment, and how nimble as a large beauty retailer they are. I think they saw wellness and the rise of wellness so early and continue to be such a great beauty exploration destination.
Yeah. And what did that first experiment store, where was that? And why did they choose that? Curious.
Oh, it was a few hundred stores. It was a few hundred stores.
Everything that's small to them is still enormous to us. It was still 300 stores. It was 300 stores.
But that's how we had to learn about, visual merchandising, promotions.
Yeah.
I don't think we as a leadership team, you and me, Lillian, had any experience in retail and sort of how to, and it's a whole different world. Also, the time scale that they work on is much,
Yes.
as you'd imagine, much longer, right? Because they have to move all those pieces. And so it also made us get organized a lot earlier as well.
Yeah.
Changed launch marketing a lot.
I'm curious, with some of that consumer feedback, what would you say is the main demographic overall? I know really a universal product, but I'm curious. What are you finding?
Yeah, well, we over-index for male consumers, but of course it's still predominantly female identifying. Gen Z and millennials, I think, are the ones that are the most open to our messaging. Yeah, but really because our brand is a pubic heritage, but body, hair inclusive, it really ranges in terms of like their grooming habits or their demographic, because we are really always trying to create products that address a multitude of concerns, right? So maybe you have like really sensitive skin and you're upset you've only been using those like terrible intimate washes that you can get at CVS. Well, we have an all body wash that's pH balanced. It's just a body wash, so anyone can use it. So it's not specific to a body hair concern. It's specific to a more historically taboo product, right? Which was like, oh no, like vaginal washes because it's dirty. We're like, no, like it's a beautiful product. You can use it anywhere. And we're not going to talk about it in a shame-based way where you need to like cleanse. It's just like a body wash.
Yep. Getting into our last question here, I like to conclude each episode with this. If you guys could both share one piece of advice with an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe something you've learned or regret along the way, what would you say that would be?
You're never going to be 100% ready, and you're never going to be confident enough to do it. So you need to just do it if that's what you want to do, that's what you think you want to do, and be confident in the fact that you'll have to figure it out. You're not going to have all the answers at the start. And I think a few times that hung me up at the first part when Laura's like, this is a great idea. I was like, no, like, I don't know about it. Like, how do we know people are going to care? You're like, you don't. You got to do it. And then also smaller things along the way. It's like, oh, like, should we do this type of test? It's like, Lillian, you're not going to gather all the information to make yourself 100% comfortable. Just bite it off into a small enough chunk to figure it out and do it. And you can fail, and that's okay, or you'll succeed and you'll learn and make it bigger.
I love that.
And I think mine dovetails with Lillian, which is that, you are the expert of your business. So I think also sometimes people, they think there's sort of an answer. And we've also found there isn't, unfortunately. There's no silver bullet. And B, you can get great advice from a lot of people, but they have their business, which was a different business and in a different time. And, the market, especially in consumer, is very dynamic, very competitive. And so I think you really do have to, at the end of the day, trust your gut and do what you think is best for this business in this time. And no one can really tell you what to do.
Yeah, love that.
So,
well, you guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. And to the listeners out there, make sure to check out Fur at furu.com.